Now, the coronavirus pandemic has largely hit urban areas in the United States first, but the fall in surge is devastating for rural America too. Hello and a very warm welcome to WION-VOA Co-Production, our weekly special on the latest stories from the United States. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. Now, the United States is averaging more than 170,000 new cases each day, and it's taking a toll from the biggest hospitals down to the little ones like Scotland County. It's a 25-bed hospital in rural Missouri that is seeing a 30% positivity rate. More with VOA's Mariama Diallo. Here's a report.
The U.S. is now averaging more than 170,000 new cases a day. This is affecting not only large hospitals in cities, but also smaller ones like Scotland County Hospital in rural Missouri. Chief Nurse Elizabeth Guffey says they are seeing a 30% positivity rate.
That's 1 in 3 patients tested is testing positive. Our increase in hospitalizations is definitely there. Over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've definitely seen at least half of our patients in the emergency room have been known COVID positive prior to walking through our doors.
People come to the 25-bed hospital from 6 surrounding counties to be treated for farm and sports injuries, chest pains, and the flu. Usually, there's plenty of room. Not now. The small hospital, with roughly 6 doctors and 75 nurses among 142 full-time staff, is in crisis.
Staffing has been the biggest challenge. You still have all the other things that happen in regular life in addition to now COVID. And we have the majority of our staff are young mothers. So if your kid gets sent home or quarantined or schools go on virtual learning or all of those other situations also affect our ability to bring in staff every day.
Nurses are working extra shifts to cover hospital needs, says Guffey.
Right now we are tapped and maxed out at our resources, and it's very difficult to incur even more patients every day.
Out of more than 13.5 million coronavirus cases in the U.S., the state of Missouri has over 306,000 confirmed cases and over 3,800 deaths, according to a tally by Johns Hopkins University. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Let's quickly get in a sense of perspective from ground zero as far as the impact of the coronavirus is concerned, and as the United States now heads into the holiday season. And what could this now mean for the United States? For that, I'm joined in by Voice of America's Catherine Gibson, who's joining us live from Washington, D.C. A very warm welcome to you, Catherine. Thank you for joining our newscast today. Now, the number of coronavirus infections have been rising in the United States in recent weeks. U.S. public health experts have also warned Americans not to travel for the Thanksgiving holidays to limit the spread of the coronavirus. Did Americans even pay heed to those warnings?
Well, unfortunately, we're beginning to see the results of that Thanksgiving holiday. And if I could sum up the situation in the United States right now, it would basically be that we're encountering a surge on top of a surge. So before that Thanksgiving holiday, we already knew that the numbers of coronavirus infections were rising in the United States to nearly 200,000 cases every single day, a 12% rise in infections, significant rises in the number of hospitalizations, and sadly, in the number of deaths. Then we encountered this Thanksgiving holiday, which quite frankly is one of the biggest travel holidays in the entire year in the United States. U.S. public health experts took a look at that, understanding that so many people would be moving around the country to visit family and friends, and said, no, you just simply cannot do this because the pandemic is uncontrolled in terms of its spread across the country right now. You know, we had hot spots here in the spring, but right now it's spread everywhere.
Right.
And so if you have all of those people moving, that's a situation of great concern right now.
It absolutely is a situation of great concern, considering Christmas is round the corner and the situation might just get worse. Having said that, Catherine, regulators in Britain have now authorized emergency use of a COVID vaccine this week, the first Western country to do so. Where does the approval process now stand in the United States?
That's right. So while we do have some concerning numbers about the coronavirus and infections and death here in the United States, we do have good news on the corner. 2 of those vaccines have gone to U.S. regulators who are in the review process this week and next week to get that vaccine out the door and into the states around the United States. Some of the U.S. states have already placed their orders for the vaccine, and the word is that some people could be receiving the first step of that vaccine by the end of this month, by the end of December. Of course, the first people in line to receive that vaccine would be healthcare workers and, of course, the people in long-term care facilities, older people who are hit terribly, terribly hard in this country by the coronavirus. So some encouraging news that, quite frankly, getting a coronavirus vaccine this quickly is incredible and a testament to the people who have been working on it throughout this pandemic.
Right. It has been incredible, Catherine. This entire week we've been getting some great amount of good news, and we'll keep talking about how the pandemic has to be dealt with as far as the lawmakers are concerned. For that, I'm just going to come back to you in a bit. For now, let's take our viewers through a report from a rare Senate impeachment trial to the largest aid package in U.S. history. A tumultuous year in politics has kept U.S. lawmakers busy, even as many worked and voted remotely for the first time because of the coronavirus pandemic. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson looks back at an historic year on Capitol Hill. Remember, Catherine was the one who just joined our live conversation.
The impeachment of U.S. President Donald Trump consumed Congress as 2020 began.
Donald Trump is going to get away with abusing his position of power.
In just the 3rd Senate impeachment trial in American history, Trump was ultimately acquitted of charges he leveraged U.S. aid to Ukraine to target political rival Joe Biden.
The President of the United States is not guilty as charged in the first article of impeachment.
While history may not remember or might be a footnote about exactly why he was impeached, I think the Democrats were trying to lay the groundwork or at least plant their flag that this president deserved to be impeached.
But the coronavirus pandemic quickly overwhelmed political debate. By late March, lockdowns to stop the spread of the virus had endangered the U.S. economy, pushing Congress to pass the largest aid package in American history.
Lives are at stake. This is not a time for name-calling or playing politics.
Passage of the $3 trillion CARES Act was a rare moment of agreement in 2020.
When Congress wants to do something, even an incredibly expensive package that has a litany of provisions in it that touch basically all factors of the economy, when they want to do something, they can.
But Congress struggled to adapt to new ways of operating to avoid the virus.
The United States Congress was one of the last institutions to make any adjustments. And even when they did, with some remote hearings and some limited remote voting, those accommodations were very temporary and definitely not fully embraced by all members of Congress.
No justice, no peace.
In June, amid nationwide protests over the death of George Floyd while in police custody, lawmakers failed to pass an ambitious police reform proposal.
The country has given us the opportunity to lead. And my friends on the other side just said no.
Frustration continued as lawmakers failed for months to agree on another round of coronavirus aid. Democrats' $3 trillion HEROES Act failed in the Senate, where Republicans warned of overspending.
I don't think the current situation demands a multi-trillion-dollar package, so I think it should be highly targeted.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
In October, Judge Amy Coney Barrett confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court by the Republican majority Senate against Democratic objections.
The Republican Senate majority decided to thwart the will of the people and confirm a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court in the middle of a presidential election.
That election decided the next occupant of the White House, Democrat Joe Biden. But 2020 closed with more uncertainty on Capitol Hill, Runoff elections in January for Georgia's 2 Senate seats will decide which party will control the Senate for the next 2 years. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
So to speak more about U.S. lawmakers' efforts to work during the pandemic, let's quickly go back to Voice of America's Catherine Gibson, who's joining us live from Washington, D.C. at this hour. Catherine, we just watched your report. Now, the U.S. Congress has had a historic year that included the largest aid package in U.S. history. What impact did that aid have on the American economy that's struggling to bounce back from the coronavirus lockdowns?
Well, that aid was absolutely crucial. And if you look back at the situation that this country was in late March, when that massive package was passed, nobody knew how long this pandemic was going to last. All we knew was that we were in lockdowns to keep the economy from mixing all of the people around, from having people circulate out in society. And a lot of small businesses in this country simply couldn't operate under those circumstances because they operate under such small margins anyway. The money that Congress passed to keep them afloat while we were under lockdown was absolutely crucial, and yet we're seeing that really that still wasn't enough because the country is still undergoing and sometimes is even locking down more as we speak to prevent the spread of the pandemic. So all of these small businesses, all of these people on unemployment are looking to the U.S. Congress to try and figure out a way out of this situation.
Right, and yet nothing much concrete has been figured out. And that's why I'm going to ask you, Catherine, the U.S. Congress has so far failed to reach an agreement on a second round of coronavirus relief. Why have these negotiations proven to be so difficult?
That's right. I mean, we've been in negotiations up on Capitol Hill for several months now between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats are saying that a massive amount of aid is still needed, wide-ranging, a whole list of wish list items. And when Republicans, who are the majority party in the U.S. Senate, take a look at this, they're saying, whoa, slow down. We need to think about how much money the U.S. government is spending here. We are seeing some encouraging signs of recovery, but quite frankly, we just got some really bad job numbers today showing that the U.S. economy had not gained as many jobs. And so really, Congress is running out of time. They have only a few days left in session before the Christmas holidays, before the end of the year. They need to figure out something so that they can get even a small aid package out the door. What's most expected is that they'll do something small and then wait until President-elect Joe Biden comes into office. Biden has already said that no matter what Congress passes in December, even another round of aid is going to be needed. Certainly a very huge problem in terms of tackling all of these issues of unemployment and jobs and businesses closing.
Right, Catherine, thank you so much for sharing all those details live from the United States. We'll keep coming back to you for more details every week. And with that, let's now shift our attention over to other international stories. As London's iconic Royal Albert Hall has been witness to many historical events, and this year it has survived a pandemic. The prestigious cultural events venue turns 150 next year, and grand celebrations are being planned with a bevy of famous musical performances. Here's the report.
The day following the coronation wound up with a grand ball at the Albert Hall.
That you have me given the opportunity.
This landmark venue has seen some of the most iconic performances over a century. From Nina Simone to One Direction, the stage has hosted many stars. Its halls have rung with applause and tears for great artists. The Royal Albert Hall in London was opened by Queen Victoria in the year 1871 and has survived 2 world wars. But the COVID-19 pandemic presented unprecedented hardships to this historic venue. So much so that it had to close its doors for the first time since World War II. As the Royal Albert Hall gears up to celebrate its 150th anniversary next year, there is a strong wish to put the pandemic behind and move on.
I'd have to say the most exciting thing so far is I think it's at the other side of the pandemic. That's the first thing. But it's really exciting because we're celebrating 150 years since the Royal Albert Hall opened in 1871. And this place is amazing. It's for Britain, it's for the world. I mean, artists from across the world have played here over its last 150 years. And celebrating that, looking to the future, is a really, really great thing to be involved with.
A raft of musical performances are planned as part of the festive program. The celebrations are slated to begin on March 21st in 2021, which marks 150 years since the venue was inaugurated. The birthday concert will be titled A Circle of Sound, and the spectacle will be headlined by award-winning composer David Arnold, the man behind the unforgettable background score of the James Bond films.
It's only going to be, the Albert Hall is only going to be 150 once. And you think maybe the next time they'll do something, it might be 175 or 200, I don't know. But, this is a time to celebrate something so special. To be a part of it is what I always wanted. It's like when you come into this place, you feel like you want to stay here. You feel like you want to be a part of it because what happens here goes straight to your heart, and you go away with the feeling that something wonderful has just happened.
The celebrations will continue till 2022 and will see legends like Eric Clapton and Patti Smith take the stage. It would be fair to say that the celebration also marks a strong desire for the arts community to return to stage. Britain's coronavirus restrictions have dealt a huge blow to artists.
I've sensed this recently with some of the dancers coming back into the studio. They're so grateful to be there. They're so much more loving what they're doing, and I think this will be the same for audiences. The audiences can't wait to get back to a live experience, and maybe we've taken it for granted in the past a bit, and I feel we're going to be so grateful for it, and that's going to stay for quite some years. I think we're going to really remember how we felt when we couldn't see a live show and we couldn't have that shared experience between performers and audience. That's what we miss.
The coronavirus crisis in the United Kingdom shows no signs of abating. Even as all hopes ride on the vaccine against COVID-19.
And I'd like to congratulate Royal Albert Hall on their 150th year.
For the 150th anniversary.
Happy birthday to the Royal Albert Hall.
The Royal Albert Hall's 150-year celebrations are offering a ray of light at the end of the tunnel. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Paris is called the city of love and romance. Each year, thousands of people flock to the French capital to experience its beauty and charm. But the COVID-19 pandemic this year has hammered even the tourism industry. Almost all hotels in Paris have remained empty, but there's a silver lining. NGOs are now stepping in by arranging the hotel rooms to be rented out as temporary accommodation for the homeless in Paris. So how is this arrangement working out? Let's find out in our next report.
The city of love is a tourist magnet. People from around the world have it on top of their bucket list. But the year 2020 is slightly different. With air travel shut and lockdowns being the norm, there have been no tourists. Hotel businesses have incurred huge losses, and hotel rooms have gone largely empty. But now, NGOs are stepping in to make the best of what has been a very grim year. An estimated 110,000 people are homeless in France. NGOs are now striking deals with hotels to provide accommodation to the homeless in Paris.
I am African. When I had just arrived, I did not know anyone. I was out on the street, and sometimes I would sleep in temporary housing with some other people. In these lodgings, some nights I sleep in the kitchen or by the garbage cans. I did that for a year and a half. And then I go out, I talk to some people. I take my breakfast and then my day starts. Some days I find a small job and I earn about 40 euros, 30 euros, 50 euros and I go out. When I find these jobs, I pay for a hotel which costs 30 euros to spend the night. But I can't do this all my life.
Residents receive 3 meals a day in the hotel's breakfast room. Each bedroom has a television and a toilet. A part of the cost of the room is covered for by the NGOs with government assistance. For the cash-strapped hotels, this is a godsend in what has been a very grueling year. The winter ahead is expected to be very severe. For the homeless, it's not easy to spend days on the streets in the snow and sleet.
Here we have men who were living on the street, who broke links socially or with their families, or who had a traumatic migration experience, to which we must respond with an emergency shelter solution. And all the capabilities of the teams who assist these sheltered persons are to assess the situation and see how to accelerate access to benefits.
Being homeless and broke is a vicious cycle. An estimated 3,600 people live on the streets in Paris. Charities this year are seeking to bring some cheer to the homeless, with the help of hotels that have agreed to open their doors for the poor. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Over to Denmark, and on the grounds of the country's oldest glass factory, 195 years of Danish blown glass history is now showcased in one of the world's largest shelf displays. Here's more.
Danish glass design is world famous. It's bold. It's beautiful. It adorns tables all around the world. Carlsberg beer bottles, glasses from Copenhagen's restaurant Noma are among the items that have made Danish glass design world famous. As the United Nations prepares for Year of the Glass 2022, 195 years of Danish blown glass history is now showcased in one of the world's largest shelf displays. Holmegaard carries the tradition of glass production, and over 42,000 pieces of glass are now on display.
Some of the great designers and artists have made monumental glass pieces that you can see here at Holmegaard Works, and it's unique that you find this great collection of Per Kirkeby and Vanna Panton and many more right at this place.
The UN Year of Glass will underline the technological, scientific and economic importance of glass. Glass will be celebrated as a transparent and enabling material, underpinning many of our technologies, facilitating the development of more just and sustainable societies to meet the challenges of globalization. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And that's all I have for you in this newscast. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue on World is One.
An island considered to be in the middle of nowhere is now going to be home for those who lost their homes. Amid concerns over its sustainability, Bangladesh begins relocating Rohingya refugees to Bhashan Char Island, away from squalid and overpopulated camps. WION reports from Ground Zero in Bhashan Char. The Rohingya relocation only on WION.